Hello, everybody. Today we are going to be learning about key signatures and specifically being able to look at a key signature that has flats in it and be able to determine which flats they are. This is an example of a key signature with flats in it. You can see a treble clef example and a bass clef example circled in red. What is a key signature? A key signature tells us which sharps, flats, and naturals that we could use for a piece of music. And this time we're going to be focusing on flats specifically. This is an example of the maximum amount of flats that you could have in the treble clef or the bass clef. You'll notice that there are 7 of them, which makes sense because we use the musical alphabet, which has A through G, and that is 7 letters. When it comes to identifying flats, you can use the same tricks that you've used for identifying regular notes on your instrument or for your voice using mnemonic devices, like for the treble clef lines. Every good boy deserves fudge, or the treble clef spaces, F-A-C-E, which spells face. In the bass clef, the lines could say, George Bush drives fast always. And the spaces in the bass clef could say, all cows eat grass. If you don't want to memorize a bunch of silly sayings, you could just realize, like the red letters say here, that it's just the alphabet that starts over at A after G. So in the treble clef, the bottom line goes E, and then, as you can see, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to the top. And in the bass clef, the bottom line is G, and since we start over after G at A, we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and again, A on top of that. We're going to practice lots of different flat symbols in some upcoming signatures here. This key signature only has 1 flat, so take a second and see if you can figure out which flat that is. It is on the 3rd line, and in the treble clef, the lines go, every good boy deserves fudge. So that flat right there is going to be a B for boy flat. For this next key signature, we're keeping the B flat, but we've added a new one. See if you can figure out what that second flat is. It is in the top space, so the treble clef spaces say F-A-C-E, that top space being an E. We're going to keep the B flat and the E flat and add yet another one. What flat is that? It is in the 2nd space, so F-A-C-E makes that an A flat. 4 flats this time. Which one is the new one? The 4th line in the treble clef is D for deserves, so that's a D flat. The new flat this time is on the 2nd line from the bottom. G for good. The 6th flat falls in the 3rd space, F-A-C-E. Our 7th and final flat in the treble clef falls in the bottom space. The bass clef is also important to be able to read our flats, so let's start over. The 2nd line in the bass clef, George Bush drives fast always, is going to be a B. The new flat this time is in the 3rd space of the bass clef. All cows eat grass. The new flat this time is on the bottom space. All cows eat grass for A flat. The new flat this time is on the 3rd line of the bass clef. George Bush drives fast always. D flat. The 5th flat falls on the bottom line of the bass clef. G for George. The sixth flat is in the second space from the bottom. All cows eat grass for C flat. The seventh and final flat in the bass clef actually goes below the bottom line, which looks confusing, but if you know that the bottom line is G, and we go down one letter in the alphabet from G, we'll wind up with F. So the bottom space below the bottom line in the bass clef is going to be an F for F flat. Now that we're done practicing all 7 flats in your given clef, did you notice any patterns with these key signatures? For instance, if one was a B and another one was an E, how far away are those? How far away is an E from an A? Think about where you might find key signatures in your music book. Are there some flats that you saw more often than others, making them more common? And also, were there any similarities between the flats that you saw in the treble clef versus the flats that you saw in the bass clef? Thanks for joining me, and have an absolutely fabulous day.